I'm a guy in my mid-30s, single and still nursing the ghost of what could have been. A few years back, maybe 5, it was one of those periods where time just didn't move right. I just split from my girlfriend, the girl who used to be my future, marriage, kids, all that stuff. And honestly, I felt like I was drifting through life with no anchor. The breakup hit hard, not just emotionally but physically. Days turned into weeks of lying around, not even bothering to eat or get out of bed. Work became a blur. Weekends were worse. I'd forget to eat, wouldn't leave the house, and would just binge watch movies till I couldn't remember what I was watching half the time. But enough about that, I'm better now. Still think about it sometimes, but not as much. Anyway, it was a Saturday night. I was slumped on my couch, barely moving except to hit play on some random movie. Couldn't even tell you which one it was. Another mindless action flick I'd forget by the time it ended. I'm in my room, second floor of my house. TV and couch? Yeah, that's where I watch everything. One day, I looked down at my phone. It was a few minutes after 9 p.m. Remember that because my mom called me for the 4th time that same day. Didn't T want to talk? Not really. Just didn't T feel like listening to her usual questions about whether I'd de-eaten or gone outside. Eventually, I got tired of whatever movie I was watching and backed out to the menu. No real mood for anything, but I clicked on some random horror flick I'd never heard of, generic-looking thumbnail with grainy texture. I figured I'd half watch it till I fell asleep. About 20 minutes in, I realized this movie was even worse than expected. The audio a mess. Every time someone talked, I had to crank the volume just to catch a word or two, and then some sound effect would blast through the speakers like it was trying to punch me right in the eardrums. At one point, this weird metallic clang started popping up sharp, kind of like metal hitting concrete. Didn't match anything on screen. No one holding a pipe or standing near warehouse floors, and not timed with any scares either. Just showed up every so often. Same sound, same pitch, same volume. That, plus the audio chaos, made me wonder how this movie even got past streaming platforms in the first place. I didn't waste another second. Jumped up, grabbed a knife off my desk and started checking every room like someone was hiding inside. But as I walked back upstairs with my heart pounding, I heard the sound again, this time quieter, meaning it had to be coming from my room. That didn't make sense. I'd been sitting there the whole time. That's when it hit me. I had windows open. Maybe the sound wasn't inside at all. Maybe it had been coming from outside the entire time. That thought scared me more than anything else. He had something in his hand, a PVC pipe, and he smacked it against the chair as soon as I looked out. My body went cold. I tried to calm myself down, told myself maybe he was lost, wandered off from someone's house and didn't know how to get back. Couldn't just stand there. As I turned the doorknob, something felt wrong, like walking into some kind of trap. If he was lost, wouldn't he have knocked or called out? I crept over to a small window left of the door, one that overlooked the porch and part of the backyard, kept the light off behind me, slowly tilted the blind just enough to peek through, and there they were. I must have stared too long because one of them suddenly turned and locked eyes with me through the glass. I dropped the blinds instantly. I dialed 911. Halfway up the stairs, I heard banging on the door. Those guys were trying to break in. I sprinted to my bathroom and locked the door behind me. Full-on panic attack. Couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Then came a crash downstairs, followed by footsteps walking around below me. They were inside my room, my house. Footsteps climbing up the stairs. I held my breath as they made their way down the hall. I saw the doorknob turn ever so slightly. That was it. I lost it. Yelled at the top of my lungs that police were on their way, and whoever was on the other side ran back down the stairs. A few seconds later, one door slammed shut. Silence. Police arrived shortly after that, told them everything. Nothing much they could do. No cameras, no useful info. The only thing that made them take it seriously. The kid. I moved on with my life. But I still hope that kid is somehow okay, even if the odds are slim. It was Monday morning, no plans except to get a workout in. As I drove past, slowed down just enough to glance through the driver's window. It was empty. Time I turned the corner and left it behind, I found myself thinking more about it than I should have. It wasn't just that it was too early in the year for ice cream trucks. It was that I couldn't remember ever seeing one in my neighborhood, not even when I was a kid. My area just wasn't that kind of place. Still weird, but I dismissed it and kept going. But as I turned onto the same street again, the ice cream truck was still there. Same exact spot. That made me pause. Someone must have called it in by now. This neighborhood, people are uptight about parking too long in front of their houses. Reminds me of a time when some grumpy woman gave my friends and I crap for parking in front of her house, even though we were waiting for our other friend who lived right next door. I'm not crazy to expect someone would have called the police by now. Curiosity got the better of me. Instead of heading straight home, I circled around the block again, and there he was, the guy inside. He looked off. He had this long, cartoonishly pointed nose and scraggly beard that hadn't seen a razor in years. Looked like someone who lived in his vehicle, which rubbed me the wrong way. I drove straight home after that. Sometime in the afternoon, I walked down the driveway to check mail, glanced down the street and nearly died inside. It was the same ice cream truck from before, parked across the street about 3 houses down. Not facing me, but I had a feeling it wasn't coincidence. Didn't move for a second, just stood there, trying to make sense of what I saw. Had that guy really followed me home? I pulled the curtain aside and peeked through. Sure enough, the truck was still there. Watched for a few minutes, but nothing happened. Didn't know what I expected to see, but couldn't bring myself to look away. Eventually, no choice left. Had to get stuff done on laptop. Couldn't focus though. Every half hour or so, I'd feel the urge to go back and check. Every time I looked, the truck was still there. But now it was in a different spot, which meant the driver was moving around intentionally. Didn't know whether to call police or just ignore it. Even now, wish I'd done what any normal person would have. Called them or ignored it, but curiosity got me. Not prepared for what I saw. Through driver's side window, that same man from before, but now he wasn't just sitting there. He was looking back at me with his own binoculars. As soon as he saw me, he dropped them, started the truck, and drove off. I was horrified. That guy had been spying on me in my house for hours after stalking me home. That's when I finally called police. Didn't even know what to expect. Just didn't know what else to do. Told dispatcher everything. The ice cream truck circling neighborhood all day. Man watching my house through binoculars and drove off the second. I looked back. She said they'd send someone out to patrol area easy enough to spot given how distinctive those trucks are. Then hung up. Didn't know what else to do after that. When parents got home a little while later, I filled them in. They were concerned, but also told me it probably wasn't worth worrying anymore. Tired by then, fell asleep quickly. Sometime later, woke randomly in the middle of night. Grabbed phone off nightstand. It was just after 3 a.m. Saturday there in bed, trying to figure out what woke me up and heard it. Music, faint at first, almost too faint to notice. Kept listening and panic started building inside when I realized what kind of music it was. The jingle of an ice cream truck. Before I could do anything, something clicked softly against the glass of my bedroom window. Instantly connected the dots. Crept toward window and stood to the side of it for a second. On count of 3, I peeled back curtain in one fluid motion and looked. Didn't waste another second. Stepped away from window immediately and went to wake up Dad. Already dialed 911 by the time he went downstairs to check things out. Dad's tough guy figured he'd want to handle it himself. Unfortunately, that man had slipped away in a few minutes before we got outside. Police arrived later. A few days passed. We never heard anything. Eventually had to go back to school. Parents promised me they'd be on high alert. Almost a month ago, and thankfully haven't gotten any strange calls since then. But why am I writing this now? Because my mom called me a few days ago. Apparently there was a missing persons case in our hometown. Why would he sit in my house for hours and throw rocks at windows in the middle of night? And why even go to all that trouble if involved in something as serious as kidnapping? Maybe worried I'd caught on somehow. But if he had really taken those kids, wouldn't attention be the last thing he'd want? Then there is the kids themselves. I wonder if they were already with him when I first saw the truck that morning, or somewhere else entirely. I can't stop thinking about it. Only explanation I can come up with. The kind of person who kidnaps a child doesn't think like normal people, which is why he'd risk getting caught, just to freak me out. Mom followed up with police, trying to connect the case and our possible link. If anything happens, I'll send an update. This happened last spring, about 9 months ago. I'm a sales associate for BMW. Weeks are busy. When not at the dealership, I'm answering the phone because of all the calls involved. Sometimes it feels like more work, even when away from my desk. Because of the nature of my job, I pretty much have to answer every ring, especially if it is an unknown number. So yeah, I get a lot of scam calls, but no choice but to pick up, just in case it is a client or someone genuinely interested. One night, after 10 p.m., the phone started ringing, a number I didn't recognize. Normally, I'd pick it up without thinking, but this time I was halfway through winding down. Late hour made me let it ring out. No voicemail left. I figured if it was important, they'd leave one. A few minutes later, the same number called again. I sat up and answered, slightly irritated, but kept my voice polite, just in case it was a serious caller. At first, I only heard thick, uneven static, but then I caught something beneath, a voice. I held the phone closer and heard it, my own voice, 100% sure of it. That made me freeze for a moment. Then I realized it wasn't just a recording of my voice, it was an actual conversation I'd had earlier that day with a client. Standard stuff, pricing, availability, setting up a test drive. Nothing sensitive, but it was definitely real, and definitely my own voice. I still don't know if it was the right decision, but I instantly hung up the phone. I sat there, staring at the phone, trying to make sense of what had just happened. He felt a surge of panic, not quite sure why. Only one explanation made sense. Maybe the client had accidentally called him while replaying his own call or recording notes. He reasoned it was a fluke, the client calling him from an unknown number instead of his usual one, which made sense if he was multitasking. He called the client back early next day. Everything felt fine until he brought up the previous night's call. When the client said he didn't recall their conversation, the narrator believed him, but something in his tone felt off. He returned to his normal routine meetings, phone calls, but the strange call lingered in his mind like a bad dream. That night was when it truly began. He received a second mysterious call, this time from an unfamiliar number. He picked up instantly and heard the same static-heavy playback he'd heard before, but this time it was entirely different. He hung up without a word, and now realized the recordings weren't just accidental, they were intentional. He realized he was being recorded, only his voice, no one else's. It wasn't an accident anymore. He started recording every call himself. A desperate attempt to prove something was happening. Someone was watching me outside. I started triple locking the front door, leaving lights on in every room. I moved a chair in front of the bedroom door. Hard to explain any of these decisions, but my mind wasn't normal that time. Whenever my phone rang, even during the day, I'd step out to answer it from my car so I could see every angle around me. I felt ridiculous reporting it, but I thought if someone was monitoring me, I had to do something. The officer was polite enough, said they'd investigate the number, but without concrete proof of harassment, there wasn't much they could do. I wasn't sure if they'd even trace the calls, or if they'd simply file it away and forget. Either way, it didn't help. In fact, it made me feel even more alone. The absence of contact deepened my paranoia. I ended up switching to a completely new personal phone number, a massive hassle. Switching meant re-establishing all my client contacts, updating every single thing tied to the old number, and risking missing a call. I did it anyway. I couldn't shake the feeling that my old number had been compromised. One night, after work, I received another call exactly like the others. I stayed calm, and unlike before, I didn't hang up immediately. Instead, I said, "I don't know who you are, or why you're doing this, but if it is money, I've got it." I added, "I'm willing to pay to be left alone." Then I gave my address and said, "I'll meet you." I said, 11:00. Then I hung up. You're wondering why I volunteered my address. Honestly, I can't explain. It was irrational. But there's no way to describe exactly how my mind worked that night. I acted irrationally, sure, but I couldn't explain precisely how my mind worked that night. I stopped trying. The next 4 days were the most traumatic moments of my life. I couldn't type without getting too graphic, so here goes. I kept a handgun in the house for safety. I grabbed it from the room, loaded it, then sat at the kitchen table waiting. I can't even begin to describe the thoughts bouncing around inside my head as I sat there. I would have gone mad if not for sheer luck. Thinking about that night still gives me a sickening chill. 11 p.m. came and went. No one showed up. I don't know what I'd have done if they'd actually shown up, so I ended up sleeping at the kitchen table, gun still in hand. It was the worst night of my life, but thankfully it ended. I never received another call. But that didn't change the fact. Whoever it was had permanently damaged my mental state. I took therapy and months off work to recover fully. I still get chills remembering how close I came to losing my mind. There's no explanation. I don't know how they recorded our calls, or even who they were. Why did they harass me? Why stop? I moved out, but there was nothing else I could do. That experience left me afraid, terrified of everything ahead. Sometimes I wonder if I'm destined to become like Mom. I hope writing this helps, somehow, to heal.